So what was the Edgar Pain?
So yeah, there was that Edgar Pain in the show, the Canyon de Chelly piece, and it had like some surface issue. Did you see it? It was.
Was it
I don't know if the varnish was peeling or reacted chemically to something underneath, but I pointed it out to the museum staff.
Yeah.
And they were already aware of it. I just didn't know if it was happening while it was in that exhibition. So I wanted.
But it was a pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the other one? Yeah, I don't know.
It wasn't in the.
No, it wasn't in the
Dixon show, obviously, but it was in the
yeah.
museum part. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is not.
Stuff happens.
Yeah. Hope
Yeah.
it's insured.
I mean, that Dixon show, I don't remember what I loaned him, maybe 150 pieces, but it was like you start to forget what you had there, you know? It was like.
That's not good.
No, it isn't. I went back to the show in January, and then right before it closed, and it was like, oh, God, yeah, I forgot about those. I literally was like, I had forgotten about those two little paintings.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, I do own those.
You own a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if I put my brain to it, I'm sure I would not be a problem, but there were so many that was like, oh, God. Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, that was a really neat show.
Yeah, that was so good. I don't know if they'll do another one like that, anytime soon.
Yeah.
It took 3 years to get that one going.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, it's pretty hard to get all the work together and
so hard.
the insurance and all that stuff.
Yeah, then they popped for it, which was really nice. We're talking with Glenn Dean, and we're actually here on the Art Dealer Diaz. We're talking about this Dixon show that was recently up at the Scottsdale Museum of the West, Desert Spirit, and it was this amazing show that I think most artists went and saw it, didn't they?
I know quite a few that did. Yeah, I don't know if everybody, at least in my circle, I don't know if they all got to see it or not. But
Yeah, did you take a special trip just to go see it?
yeah, I had to deliver a painting to Phoenix, so I combined it with that.
Yeah, it was. I've got to go see the
I
Dixon
volunteered
show.
to deliver the painting.
Yeah, they were probably like, "Oh wow, man, he is so good. He brings the paintings to us. Just one painting." Did you have a favorite, by the way, in that show?
Let me think. There were some that I hadn't seen before. And some of the what looked like higher elevation paintings. Kind of Rocky Mountain type.
Yeah,
stuff.
there was a couple in there like that. Yeah, that were that. That's what they were. They were from California,
like redwoods and stuff.
Yeah.
Those were pretty sweet.
I think just seeing Earth Knower, was such.
So incredible.
And that was the first time that, to my knowledge, ever that Earth Knower was with its study. So I own a study for it. So we had the study for Earth Knower, and we had three of the studies for Shapes of Fear.
Oh yeah.
And they had never. So that was a first, and I think Pickett's too. We had the little Pickett's there. So there was a lot of studies that had never been together since Dixon had them.
Oh yeah.
Which is like just amazing.
Yeah, it's really neat to be able to see some of those smaller works next to the finished paintings. Yeah.
So, and you have a lot in common with Dixon in the sense that you were self-taught, right? I mean, Dixon he had some training, and you've done mentorship and things too, but you're pretty much right in that.
No formal training.
Yeah. I mean, you've been training your whole damn life. But, I mean, you have, right? I mean, no formal training.
Right.
And I've found some of my best artists actually are like that.
Oh yeah.
I do.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like, when I look at artists that do have formal training, either currently or historic artists, I feel like, there's some level of training, mostly in draftsmanship, that I feel like, maybe it's harder to find when you're self-taught. Some of the Taos guys, they just come out of wherever they trained and they have this ability to draw.
Right.
And then they go express themselves, basically. And, artists today that are getting formal training, they're learning how to draw. I guess it's what you do after that. If you have the skills to draw, and like, how do you express yourself after that? For me, it was like, okay, I'm not super confident in how I draw, so I'm just going to go out and paint a bunch of things and see if that improves it, and I feel like it has, but I always think like, oh, I wish I had a formal training, because I don't have like a teacher's voice in my head that is there like in your thoughts, like correcting you when you make a mistake or when you obviously do something, out of drawing, and where I feel like a lot of those guys, like if you think of, Harvey Dunn or something, he probably had Howard Pyle's voice in his head constantly, just like, nope, that's too dark, or those darks are separated too much or something. So, those things I have to figure out on my own, which is challenging and also, rewarding, I guess. But it often leaves me wondering if I'm doing it right or something.
Yeah, but I think that actually is an advantage in a weird way. And I say that because you also don't have that teacher's voice in your head polluting anything.
True.
Because you don't have that, you really focus heavily on, I want to get this right, where you might not have done that if you had had the formal drawing classes or whatever. That because, you don't want to fail, you want to work so hard at it, you actually probably work harder at it than you might have. And the fact that you are now known in some way as a figurative painter, really, I mean, that's a testament to that you were able to conquer that for sure. Because you do these amazing figures. And just like Dixon, who, didn't have any formal training, he had 3 months, and they were making him do like things in Paris, kind of nudes and things, and he despised it, and it scared him. You have that same thing that you've really worked on. I bet you look at other artists' drawings and really focus and look and see how they've done it. You're probably much more observant of that than just your average person. I think that's an advantage. It's like Bubba Watson playing golf, right? He didn't have any formal training, none. He's won 2 Masters, and it gives him a unique style and a unique ability to get around the golf course and see it in a way that other golfers just can't see it. So I think, in a weird way, I actually think it's an advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, glad you think so.
That's what I'll tell them anyway.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Torrance, California.
Yeah.
Which is we were, I think, about a mile or 2 from the ocean.
Yeah.
So
and you were a body surfer, right? Or
yeah.
But was it boogie board?
Yeah.
It was boogie board.
Yeah. And so a lot of my youth was spent in the ocean or on the beach. Yeah.
And when you were doing that, I mean, you were really good, right? I mean, you were like competitively good, right?
Yeah. A little bit later, I started competing and traveling and stuff. Yeah.
And did you compete like in Hawaii and those kind of things?
Never in Hawaii, but just throughout California. I was in competitions where, it was international, so there would be guys from various countries in the competition.
Yeah.
So,
And so what was your worst wipeout? You remember? I see one scar I can tell is.
It was one time in Black's Beach down in San Diego. This wave came in and broke like right in front of me, and in the worst possible spot, like right where the wave has the most impact.
Oh yeah.
And it just ripped my fins off my feet and then put me like on the bottom, which out there it's pretty deep. So and I was kind of disoriented for a bit, and then I left. I have this tendency to blow all my air out as I'm coming up, and I thought I was closer to the surface than I was, but I wasn't. So I don't know. It was pretty scary because I didn't have any air and I was still under for a while. And then, anyway, survived obviously, but I got to the beach and just kind of sat on the beach and was like, okay, that was.
Did you go back in that same day?
I don't know. I think I was like kind of shaking or something from it. And
that's a near-death experience. Probably it was probably pretty for you to get that upset. It was probably pretty significant.
Yeah, it was pretty close to having to, take a lungful of water, which was
not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
How old were you?
Probably 20 or something like that.
20.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't realize how dangerous it can be. I mean, bodyboarding can be really. I mean, would you take waves that were say 7-8 feet tall ever?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cooking. I mean, those are big waves.
Yeah.
For a bodyboard.
I had my comfort zone, which was, around head high waves.
Yeah.
So when things would get bigger than that, it would kind of make me question.
Yeah.
I mean, not, a little bit bigger than that is fine, but when they're double that or something, it's a little bit different experience,
Yeah, it's like terror as you go down.
Yeah.
When do I get out of it?
Right.
Yeah. So, did you consider doing that as a profession and making that your
I did
career?
Temporarily. Yeah, I was actually getting a small paycheck from a sponsor, which, and I was competing in a professional level competitions. But yeah, ultimately it wasn't, something that was fully paying the bills or anything like that.
Right.
And it was around that time I started painting landscapes.
And how old were you then?
Let me think. Probably around that same time, around 21.
21, yeah, because your mom's a painter.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, did she influence you in that aspect?
I mean, not by trade, but yeah.
No, but she's a good
painting
painter
her whole life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She. I did my first landscape painting here in Tucson.
Yeah.
Yeah. That she helped me to do. I mean, up until that point, I was drawing kind of made up Martian faces and stuff, and just for fun, really no direction about it. And then doing that first landscape painting was a turning point. It showed me that a lot of things. It showed me that it takes discipline to get a good result. But I mean, the first painting was terrible, but the experience was incredible. Just being outdoors and trying to paint nature was a real turning point for me, where I just thought, gosh, this is great. It felt like it was a path to follow,
Did it feel like that being out on a wave in a way? I mean, that same kind of sensibility?
It's different, I think. There's something, there's some parallels there. Yeah. Just the rewarding sort of aspect of being in nature and experiencing nature. But when you're waiting for a wave, and you have time to kind of look around, that might be a little bit more of a parallel with standing out in the landscape.
Yeah, because I've watched you paint before, and I can remember seeing you up in not Canyon de Chelly, but Monument Valley, and watching you, because that's what I do, right? I'm an observer, and seeing you look at the area and really absorbing it and trying to decide what would be the right angle, the right way to start a painting, find the image that's the way that you want to do it. So it seems similar in that way, I guess.
I mean, as far as like riding a wave, I mean, your response to that wave is going to be unique, because that wave is unique, you know. But if you're out looking for a place to paint, or the right vantage point or something, it's a little bit different, because you're trying to, I don't know, you're just looking at very different things, composition, light and dark and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know it when it hits you?
Yeah. Sometimes if I think too much, I'll spend a lot of time walking around, and, sometimes that results in a better painting or a better spot. But a lot of times, more often, I just sort of give in to my first inclination or my first thing that I'm interested in. And then I might try to find from there what it is about it that I like. Yeah.
Do you find, because you do paintings of seascapes beautifully, as well as desert, for your desert, and now you're doing Pueblo scenes as well. Is there a subject matter that really resonates with you more than others?
I don't think so. I feel like that's the beauty of, the living in the West. I feel like there's just so much subject, and it's like if you had access to any kind of food there is, and if you were asked if you had a favorite,
right?
It's kind of like, well, if I don't have to have a favorite,
right,
then I will enjoy it all. Not that I'm a glutton or anything. I'm just using that as a bad analogy. But yeah, I think it's it's all beautiful.
It's all tasty,
incredible stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I try to approach it all with, I think when I'm painting anything, I try to paint it authentically. Not carry over like colors that I've mixed in other paintings for a new painting. I want it to all be sort of authentic. So even if you paint from 1 hour to the next in a spot, if you turn your easel slightly, that's going to be a completely different color palette. So to use the same colors, some you can get mixtures from them, but I feel like it's best to just observe authentically what's in front of you and try to paint it authentically too.
And usually for your paintings, you're going to have a little study that you do first, a plein air study?
Not always. No, I feel like a lot of the energy of a painting can be, if you spend it on a study versus the jumping right in. Sometimes you need a study if you haven't quite worked out the composition, or if there's an area that's might be problematic in the composition. But a lot of times I jump in because I want that to be my first kind of impulse, or my reaction, and have that all that energy into that sort of final work.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll revisit certain compositions. There's a painting in the show here that I've painted before, but it's a completely different color palette and effect. But it's essentially the same composition, but I wanted to see it in a different color palette.
Yeah, which makes it totally different. Yeah, but there must have been something about that composition. You go, wow, I just love this composition. I'm not quite done with it, but I'm going to do it differently.
Yeah, it ended up a little. In this case, it's the painting called Wyoming Cowboy.
I love that. I love that painting.
And it says number 2 on it because I
saw that. That's right.
It's the second one. And the first one was a full sun, bright colors, and a little bit smaller painting. And this one was bigger and a lot more muted, kind of earth tones, which I don't know. I liked the way the writer filled the canvas space, and so I wanted to just explore another version of it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the strongest paintings in the show.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I really do. And I was actually gonna ask you, why was it number 2? No. But that makes it completely a different painting. Many artists do that kind of thing, and I think there's nothing, you're probably going to do the second one as good or better than the first because you've already had it imprinted in your mind. You have a little muscle memory there, right?
Yeah. There's some areas that you don't have to necessarily resolve again.
Right.
So you can paint them a little more freely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful at some point in time in history, to see those two hanging together. Seriously.
Yeah.
It might.
Yeah.
We may not be around for it, but they may be taking this podcast and going, "Oh, let's play this little part here. This is why this looks so different and why he revisited it." So now you're growing up in Torrance. You do the bodyboarding, and then you, about 21, 22, you get into painting. And was there something there that just, in other words, you've been drawing other things, Martians and stuff, so you always had kind of an aptitude, I guess, for art or enjoyed art. Were you noticed in school at all, in like grade school or junior high, for your abilities to draw?
Yeah, I doodled a lot as a kid, but in high school, that's when I was doing the Martian heads and whatnot. And I think that, there was some support and encouragement there from the teachers. And I actually didn't start landscape painting or getting into more of a serious art form until I moved down to San Diego. My folks moved out here to Tucson.
Right.
And then I was living in San Diego, and that's where I was bodyboarding and painting and going to school and all this.
Right.
I went to community college down there.
And what were you taking there?
Just everything.
Yeah,
kind of
general classes.
Yeah.
Trying to find what you're supposed to do in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, your parents, your dad was a physician, right?
No, they were both psychologists.
Psychologists. Yeah. But were they going, Glenn, this is not a career being a bodyboarder, or were they?
No, actually, they were very supportive of it. And I'm
that's great.
So grateful for that because, and I actually recall this time when I was a senior in high school, and it was kind of one of those, sit down with a counselor day and discuss your future.
Right.
And the counselor, my mom was next to me, and the counselor asked me, what do I want to do? And I said, I want to bodyboard and I want to be an artist. And she looked at my mom and said, and you approve of this? And my mom kind of let her have it in so many words.
Nice.
Kind of like, yeah, of course I do. This is what he wants to do, and I support that. So, and I'm so grateful for that because a lot of kids don't have it as supportive among family. So
and a counselor like that could screw up the kid right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not supposed to do that. I shouldn't do that. And many parents probably would have buckled and go, well, would have been easier to buckle than to go, no, I want him to do this. Yeah, this is what he loves.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I mean, they saw that I doodled and I was at the beach all the time, and I was pretty serious about how I would spend my time surfing. I mean, they knew I was dedicated to it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that was a factor, that they saw that I did it to improve and to get better at it. And they maybe were thinking, oh, he's probably going to be like that with art too. But I don't know.
Yeah. I bet they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're probably right.
I don't know. But I'm grateful, that they were supportive of the paths that didn't appear to be viable ways to spend your time.
Yeah, no, if you put that in your yearbook, they would be like, yeah, okay, we'll see. And you're an artist so many years later. So you start painting in your early 20s, and then how does it go from there to, okay, I want to be an artist? Was it pretty quickly? You put the boogie board away and said, okay, this is where I'm going?
Well, there was a time there I was doing both, and I started getting a little more serious about painting landscapes, and I was spending more time doing it every chance I got, really. And I started looking at art books and discovering artists and just seeing like, wow, this is like such a never-ending quest. It's like it's not just something you find out how to do in a period of time and then you're done. It's like this multi-layered thing that you try to unlock a door here and then there's two more behind it that are locked, and so it's been like that. But I feel like that whole early times painting landscapes was, maybe, it was rough because I was trying to do a lot of things at once. But then when I realized I wanted to spend more time painting landscapes, I just jumped in. And I remember calling my folks and saying, I need your help because I want to do this full time. And they said, well, that made it a little more real for them. So they got a little nervous. And I said, I just need 1 year. Like, if you guys could sponsor me for 1 year while I try to, because I was starting to accumulate paintings. And,
right.
And then in that time, in that 1 year, I started selling paintings in galleries, and here I am. So I don't know.
And were you selling? Did you start with El Presidio at that point?
That was no. It was before that. There was a gallery called Art Spirit, which was right next to Stu Johnson here, and I was, I think, showing there first.
How'd you get that gig? Did you just show up with your paintings and go?
I can't remember.
I'm an artist. Do you remember?
I think my mom was helping me out, getting galleries and stuff. I didn't really know how to do that, and she I don't know if she did either, but she managed to help in that regard. And there's a gallery in California that helped me out too to get started. That was Gallery Americana in Carmel.
And so they started selling paintings.
Yeah.
And so probably pretty quickly you knew, okay, this is viable.
Yeah.
Or it seemed viable.
It just seemed encouraging. You know, like, okay, maybe this is something I can pursue. And, you know, regardless of that factor, I knew I wanted to do it. But that definitely helped, you know, to see that it could be a career, you know.
Yeah. And then when did you switch over from that first little gallery to the El Presidio? Do you remember when you did that?
I don't remember that time. It had to have been, you know, around 2000 or something like that.
Yeah. And then you did a show here in Tucson, the Desert Museum, Sonoran Desert Museum show. They had a plane. I think it was a plane. I don't know if it was a plein air. Was it plein air?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a unique kind of format, but it was a plein air show.
Because how old were you when you did that?
You know, I can't remember. But that was, what year was that? Was that 2003 or something? No, it was earlier.
I have to go look on the back of my painting that I still have from that show.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but it was early. It had to have been, 2000-ish.
Yeah, I think it was.
Because I thought, as I remember, you were like maybe 22 or 23, but maybe you were a little older. I don't know.
Yeah, it was around that time, 22, 23.
Yeah, that's what I remember. And so do you remember how you got invited to go? Because there was Ray Roberts was there. There were some really good artists. Do you know how you got into that show?
Well, my mom helped, get that show started.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that had something to do with me getting invited or not, but I submitted, and I think they were just trying to, it was the first year doing that show. So they were trying to get artists, and I was showing here in Tucson, and so I think they were getting some local artists as well as artists that were known outside of Arizona. So I think, I don't know. I don't remember much around that, like getting in the show part. Yeah.
I remember that show vividly because I was a judge for it. And I went in to see the stuff, and I saw they had one of your paintings, just one. And I was like, wow, who the hell's this guy? This guy can really paint. And I was like, and I asked them, is there other works of this individual? Because anybody can nail one good painting. Or not anybody, but it's doable and not have the rest of them, have the same quality. And they said, oh yeah, we got some more. And they brought them all out. And I was like, oh my God, they're all great. They're all really, really good. And I ended up buying one at that show, which I still have. It's in my house. And it's still a very, I looked at it the other day. I was like, that's super competent painting. Even all those years ago.
All those years ago.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll text you a picture of it if you've forgotten, what you probably have. Pretty good sized painting. I've done very well, by the way, on that painting for what I paid for it at that time. But I remember Ray won. I think he won the Dixon Award, and you won maybe Best of Show. Or,
yeah. Well, it was. I think there were 2 awards. Did I get 2? I can't remember if
you got Best of Show,
and then maybe Artist Choice as well.
Yeah, you may have. Yeah.
Or maybe Artist Choice was Best of Show. I can't remember.
It was Best of Show. I remember because I voted on it. It was just like, oh my God.
And that painting that won, I remember I painted. It was Pontotoc Peak.
Yeah.
And I painted it. It was I think a 20 by 24 or something like that.
Right.
And I went back to the scene. I painted it about 4 days in a row.
Yeah.
And trying to tighten it up. Usually my paintings are smaller and they're one sitting.
Right.
But out here in Arizona, when you get all that sunshine day after day, you can return to the same location and spend more time on it, which I did on that piece, and it paid off, I guess. Yeah,
it was a great piece. I remember it. I didn't buy that specifically because it won, and I didn't want to be like, oh, I judged on it, and and then I bought it. So I didn't think that was too ethical. I thought they were all good, actually. So did that help your career, you think, getting an award like that right off the bat? Giving you more recognition? I mean, it gave it recognition to me for sure. But
yeah, Yeah, I think so. You know, I mean, anything that helps you get to the next batch of paintings, you know, whether that's a gallery that's interested or another show to be a part of, you know, things like that are good because they, you know, they just push you along and they help you to want to, if not maintain a standard, you know, up the level of your standard each time too.
And so from that point, what in your career, where did you go from there? We had a show. You started showing with me not too long after that. And we had a show that was a complete sellout of about, what, 50 paintings or something?
I think there were 63
There you go. Show. I knew you'd remember.
Well, it was like such a crazy number of paintings.
It was.
You know, most shows these days are like 20 paintings, you know, at the most.
We have 21 coming up in your new show, which opens to the public on November 20th. There's my pitch. But yeah. It was, and there were some big paintings in that too. You did some really big paintings.
Yeah, 48 by 60 or something like that, but a lot of smaller studies and things too.
Yeah, I think I ended up buying 2 little studies, which we still have as well. So they still hold their own. They really do. And so you do that show. That's a massive success, and then. What did you do as an artist from there? Because you're still trying to get better. I mean, did you work with Terry and John a little bit, Moyers?
A little bit. I mean, that was when I moved to
Santa
Fe, which was around 2007 or something like that, 2006. Yeah, and they, you know, they were kind of my only contact or friends out there. So so we spent some time together, but. Not a lot of painting together. A little bit, and with, you know, in Carmel and stuff when we're doing those events with the gallery. But I don't know. I think the progression it's a hard thing to really put into words because it just happens, you know.
Right. It's life, right? I mean, life just goes along. You don't remember what was your 23rd birthday party or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. There was a cake, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just know that every time I try to paint something, it's always, I'm always trying to do it better than the last thing I painted. So that helps you to grow, hopefully.
Yeah, well, it does, I'm sure.
I think when artists look at their growth, they see it very slow or non-existent at all. You know, I think it's frustrating that way. You know, I'll look at an old landscape study from 15 years ago and I'll think, oh, I was better then, you know. What am I doing now? And it's funny how it is. I think it must have to do with the amount of time away from the painting. Yeah. You know, 15 years is a long time, so I can look at it as if someone else painted it, you know, and see it unobjectively. But I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, I just try to crank along and try not to repeat myself. And, you know.
Yeah, you're really good about that, actually. Yeah, very, you know, whether it's a landscape painting or a figurative painting, you know, they all have unique sensibilities. And you have, I've seen your progression. I can watch it a little differently because I've known you for 20 plus years. But when you take on a new subject, right, you go and try something different. And you succeed, and it's like, oh, he's trying this now. He's going to see how this goes, and so that you did that with figurative. I mean, you were strictly a landscape painter, pretty much. I mean, you put little figures and things, but really more of a landscape painter until at some point you said, no, I want to do some figures in this. And do you remember why or what happened or how that occurred?
I don't know. I mean, I've always wanted to. I just didn't know how to start. You know, my artist friends, some of them are very accomplished figure painters, and so it's a little overwhelming. You know, it's just like, oh, I better just stay in my corner and do my landscapes. You know? But I don't know. I remember doing a little gouache of like a cowboy, and it was pretty well received. It was in a miniature show here in Tucson with Stu Johnson. Yeah, and I thought, well, you know, that was fun to do and it's different, and you know, maybe I'll try to explore that a little more, and it felt like a natural kind of thing to explore because I was painting Western landscapes and Southwest landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of figures are suitable for the setting? Well, it's going to be cowboys. It's going to be, natives. It's going to be indigenous folks. I didn't like the idea of, painting contemporary figures.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they join the landscape in such in as much of a I guess seamless way or natural way. I mean, a guy on a horse riding through the desert is pretty darn romantic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice thing to look at or think about and imagine, and versus maybe in a 4x4 Jeep or something.
Right.
It's just different.
Right.
It's not. So
you are a romantic. I mean, you are. I mean, when I look at your paintings, and you use women, in your paintings all the time, and there's a sense of love, I think, when you look at those, longing sometimes. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
I bet if I asked your wife, she'd say, yes, he is.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so you started doing figurative work and how long ago was that? Maybe 8 years, 10 years ago?
Yeah. So I was driving to Los Angeles. Was it? I think twice a week to study with this guy Glenn Orbick.
Mm-hmm.
And so the days I would drive down there it was drawing all day long at this school. Gosh, what was the name of it? I can't remember the name right now.
Right.
Apologize. I should know the name of it. But Glenn Orbick was teaching there, and he was one of my classes, and the rest were kind of open studio, like figure drawing,
right,
and portrait, without a lot of instruction. And then after that I'd spend some time painting with Jeremy Lipking was teaching out of his studio on that same evening. So I'd go over there and he was, and I'd paint along with them or draw along.
Yeah, he's one of the greats.
Yeah.
Maybe the great. I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah. And so I was really kind of immersing myself in a little bit more drawing and trying to understand some of the stuff a little differently. And then around that time, gosh, that was around 2011, was when my dad passed away.
Mm-hmm. And
I remember I did kind of a portrait of him for our family, just to kind of have. And, I don't know. And it was sort of like, okay, life is short, jump in, do what you want to do. Yeah. Even if you don't have permission, it's kind of like, and I don't mean that recklessly. I mean that like, now's as good a time as any to try to start painting figures more and stuff. So I jumped in around that time. Well, I didn't start showing some cowboy stuff. I think it was around 2014 was when I started showing a little bit more figurative things. I was doing some figures in the landscape leading up to that, and then I started kind of zooming in more around 2014 and having the figures take up most of the canvas. And now it's kind of a mix. I enjoy having that mix, it just kind of keeps me interested and keeps me challenged. There's all kinds of ways to paint a painting and formats and compositions. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm still just getting started.
You are. You literally are just getting started.
I look at like some of the great illustrators like N.C. Wyeth and Dean Cornwell, Harvey Dunn, those guys, and the way they compose pictures with figures is so unique. And it's not just this story that they had to present. They presented it without overstating it. They presented it almost like a surprise each time, like an intelligent surprise almost, something where your mind is satisfied to look at these paintings, even though they're considered illustrations. They're
Right.
often more mature than what's called fine art. You know, I mean, it is fine art.
Yeah,
it's just weird that they have those labels on.
Yeah.
On those things.
I mean, you look at an N.C. Wyeth painting now, and they might bring $5 million, and those are illustrations, quote unquote. But
and he himself didn't think he was much of a fine artist.
I know.
It's crazy. I mean, and I don't know where that came from. I mean, I guess if you're comparing some of his work with the real classically trained kind of, I don't know what kind of artist he was looking at to make him think that. But
well, I think it was a mindset. So you have to go back into that time frame, right? So at that turn of the century, 20s, 30s kind of time, you were an illustrator, you were a fine artist, and there's a great example of Dixon feeling that as well. He filled out a card for the Sacramento State Library, and it had to fill out everything about who he was and what he was, and you could circle who you were. It would say artist, illustrator, whatever. And he literally crossed out illustrator and circled artist.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just making it sure, that was 1915, that you understood in his mind that he was no longer that person.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, the illustrators back then, I mean, they could literally paint anything.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a definition of an artist. They could draw or paint anything, and that is what an artist is. I mean, in my opinion. I mean, there's obviously varying degrees of that, but I feel like they literally could do anything.
Yeah, and some of those I think make the best artists actually when they've done that. The Zeminskis of the world, and Francis Livingston, these individuals that are, Eric Bowman. I mean, Eric Bowman can paint anything.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He just did this one painting that he put on Instagram. I'm just going to shout out because I thought so amazing, was of this lady ironing,
Yeah.
a heavy woman just ironing, and it was beautiful. You know, and, you think of him for his Western and Hispanic stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I visited his studio last year up in Oregon, and it was really neat to see.
Bet it was immaculate.
Yeah, pretty clean. Yeah,
yeah,
but a nice space with a lot of sketchbooks full of stuff.
Yeah,
paintings on the easel, and it's just got a nice way of working.
Yeah. So, but when you started figurative, I mean, you took off like a rocket, I think. I mean, that was my perspective watching it. And I don't mean that in the sense that you were still selling everything as a landscape artist, but it really brought new energy to you and to your work. And I think there's a lesson there for artists too, by the way, out there that are listening to this, that you have somebody like Glenn, who's known to be one of the finest landscape painters working at that time, and he takes a chance and says, I'm doing this in 2001, and switches and adds figurative, and now has become a figurative painter. And I think I honestly think it's taken you to another level because that you were willing to take that risk. I don't know how you feel about it, but
yeah, sure. I mean, life decisions are a series of risks, essentially,
Yeah.
And you just kind of say, you just weigh it against the alternative. It's like, okay, if I risk trying to be an artist and I become one,
yeah,
versus don't risk and don't become one. I don't know. I just feel like always risk towards what you want to be or what you want to do. I think that's important. And going back to what you said about landscape and figure, I feel like being a landscape painter to start with, and still am, but I feel like that has taught me a lot, in terms of color and simplifying. And so when I approach another subject, or if it's figure or architectural stuff, it's gonna be informed by my years as a landscape painter.
Yeah,
which I think is important.
Oh, I think it's very important.
I see a lot of artists that might come out and just want to paint figures from photos or even landscapes from photos, and there's going to be something lacking there just because there's a lot of information that our eye will see that the camera can't get, and just the way we perceive is going to be it's going to be figured out from life versus from photos. Like, I think the way an artist sees is going to be revealed through working from life.
Yeah, and you still do that, right? You're still out there painting plein air all the time, right?
Yeah, a lot of the figurative stuff is done in the studio.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, the landscapes are more of an outdoor experience, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at some of the best artists that do that, I mean, you know, people think of Logan Hajez as just being figurative primarily now, but he's a fantastic landscape painter.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. I mean, actually, there's some of his landscapes I just think they're amazing.
Yeah. I have a great one of his that I won in a ping pong tournament.
Okay, tell this story.
Oh no, it was just I had a ping pong table when I was living in Los Osos, which is near where I live now. This was in 2005 or something like that, and he'd come up occasionally and we'd paint and do stuff, and he had this one painting, and I was like, oh man, I really love that. Let's play for it, you know, kind of thing. I don't remember the details, but anyway, it's you know, he wrote on the back something about their ping pong tournament.
Yeah, and I bet you're a very good ping pong player, aren't you?
No, I don't know. I mean, it's fun. I'm not, you know.
If you can ride an 8-foot wave down on a boogie board, I bet you've got pretty good reflexes and things for that. Yeah.
I don't know. It's fun. It's more of like a game that makes you laugh, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because when you get a rally going, it's kind of funny.
But yes, I think being able to paint landscapes, I think there's something out there for the people that are listening, you know. If you're going to want to be a figurative painter, maybe you better go out and do some plein air too, just to understand your, you know, light, color,
definitely,
setting, composition.
Yeah, I think if anyone wants to be an artist of any kind that's rooted in reality or realism or in the way things look,
right,
then go out and get a field easel, because it's gonna. And you know, Monet, he said, "That's my teacher," and that it's so true. And those, you know, truer words have never been spoken, really, because that's where you learn everything. And I still, you know, when I paint outside, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I just put up a panel and I start slapping paint on, but it's like there's so much there. There's so much to learn, and I don't know, it's kind of overwhelming, but it's also very rewarding, you know, to just be out there and trying to mix the colors, what you're seeing, and you know.
And it teaches you discipline too. You have to finish the painting.
Well, yeah, you have to be efficient with your time and with your mixtures and with your brush strokes and stuff. You have to think about the economy of all that stuff, because it's changing, and then and the, you know, how that economy of line or color or, you know, brush work, you know, how that translates into other subjects is pretty fluidly, I think. You know, I mean, the way you paint a landscape might be how you paint a figure. I mean, it might, you know, you might make decisions around how you paint other things based on what you've learned in the landscape, is what I'm trying to say.
Makes sense. I'm sure it worked. I'm sure it was the same for Dixon. I have no doubt.
Oh yeah, you can see it. You can see it in his drawings. Yeah. And then if there's a drawing next to a painting, you can see how he thinks.
Yeah.
Almost.
Well, a lot of times his figures almost have a sense of being a rock, you know, in a way. I mean, the way you can see how he draws rocks and things, and you know, they have that same simplicity of line and drawing in his figures. Now we just need to get Josh Elliott out there to start doing some more figurative stuff.
He's great. The ones I've seen of his are
unbelievable.
Great. Yeah, that guy could paint anything.
I know. Well, I've got that triptych that I bought from the booth.
Oh yeah,
you guys. Yeah, it's hanging in my house.
Nice.
And in that one, you know, it's a wonder. I look at it all the time. It's you, Logan, and Josh did these figures in it, and I was like, Josh, come on, man.
Right.
You should do some more figures. But, you know, he loves the landscape. But.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think in everything he paints, he kind of does it with love, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, he's a very competent artist. He could pretty much paint anything. I've never seen him not paint something well.
Yeah, no, it's fun to watch him paint. I watched him do a nocturne in the bottom of Canyon de Chelly. And I was just like, wow, I don't know how you do that. Light on, light off, light on, light off.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was on a trip with him up in Glacier National Park, and we went out painting at night one of the nights, and he was doing that, light on, light off. I think I had like some limited light, so I had to paint from inside my car with a light on. It was fun though.
Well, I think that's one of the beauties of being an artist too. I mean, you've made some great friends, and you have some real cohorts that kind of each other's followed your trajectory both along the way.
Yeah, I'm really, really grateful for that. I mean, the guys that have become my friends over the years just feel like family, you know, because we're in this together. We're kind of growing together, and you know, a similar phase of life together.
You've gone from young guns to middle guns. I don't know.
Middle guns,
middle age,
longer guns. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm really grateful to have a group of friends that kind of get it, you know, as far as the place you're in and what you're trying to do,
and you can root for.
Oh yeah,
you know, they do great, and it's just you're so happy that they're able to.
Oh yeah,
succeed.
It's the best seeing them do so well.
Yeah,
it's really cool. Yeah.
And so now we've got this show that you've been working on. We were going to do it last year, but pandemic was just too insane. Not that we're not still in pandemic time, but we've got like 21 paintings that are going to be in the show. And, you know, I was just blown away by the Pueblo work. And you and I were talking about this a little earlier before the show, because you brought in all our paintings, but you lived in Santa Fe for quite a few years, but didn't really paint Taos or Santa Fe scenes so much other than landscapes. But now you're doing these amazing Pueblo pieces that, you know, are great. So maybe you can just tell me, you know, how did that all happen?
Oh, well, thanks. When I lived out there in Santa Fe, I painted the Pueblo itself a couple times, and some areas around Santa Fe, Las Golondrinas, and you know, some Pueblo structures. But I don't know, and I feel like the work, you know, I'm doing now, I have a few paintings in this show, not many, I think there's 3 or 4, maybe 5, I don't know, of the, you know, Pueblo setting with the Pueblo Indian in the setting. And I feel like, you know, those paintings are probably more informed by my experience living there, which all those years ago, it's you know, helping inform these paintings now, which I think is interesting, because, you know, I don't know, you just remember certain things, or the visual feeling of a adobe structure, you know, it's kind of a unique thing, and it's hand formed quality, you know, it's very, very artful thing. I think the Pueblo structure. I'm looking at a photo right now on your wall of which is a great image. But yeah, I mean, it's just organic, you know. So I don't know. I think with some of the ones in the show, it's either about like just having a bright. And the times I've been out at the Pueblos, it's usually been a bright sunny day. I've also seen it under gray skies, which is also beautiful. So just trying to catch, you know, the way the light hits some of the softer forms and the way they transition and stuff. Just trying to paint some of those things. And I don't know. I feel like it's a neat subject.
I think it is perfect for what you're doing. I hope we see more of that as well, honestly, quite frankly. I hope we're kind of the kickoff of that type of subject matter. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. It's again, like, I like painting all kinds of things in the West, and you know, I don't like the idea of limiting myself in terms of like jumping in and just doing one thing. I think having a selection of things that keep me interested, I think are so yeah. I mean, there'll be more. It's just I don't know if it'll be everything I do.
No, I'm
like
sure
that, yeah.
not. Well, I don't think it could keep your interest if you just did just that. I think it seems to me it's like adding that another dimension, honestly, to what you do. And for collectors, they can go, oh, I have one of his Pueblo pieces. I have one of his cowboy pieces. I have one of his women pieces. And I'd like to talk about the women pieces because, you know, you do these beautiful female figures, and we have quite a few on the show. Why do you think you gravitate toward that, to the women figures?
So a lot of the women figures in my paintings are of my wife, and you know, it's interesting. I was painting lone cowboys, and then I got married, and then suddenly I started painting, you know, a woman counterpart to these cowboys, which I didn't plan that, but I thought it was interesting to see it show up in my work, and I just, you know, and I think as a subject, you know, aside from, you know, my wife being the model, it's just more representative of, you know, a woman of the West kind of thing. And, you know, I've used other models as well, but, and I just feel like, you know, maybe there's not a lot of paintings out there where the women are in the center, you know, the focus. You know, some of them in my paintings, they're not the focus, and then other ones they are. And I kind of, again, it's about mixing it up and doing different things. But I don't know, I just feel like the shape, you know, a woman, whether she's got a dress on or a blanket over her top half or something. You know, I'm looking again at this Pueblo image and some of the blankets over the women. And I don't know, I just feel like that's a beautiful subject, and it can be explored almost to no end, and with a lot of, I think it's a worthy subject, and also artful.
Yeah, I think one of the best paintings I've ever seen that you did was, and I think it was maybe at Prito West that you won the award for. It was your wife. We ended up selling
Oh,
it.
that one. That was a Quest for the West.
Quest for the West, that's right.
And that one called In the Balance.
Yeah, God,
yeah,
it's a great painting.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's such a great painting, and it, you know, deserved to win a major award. And you know, just it was your wife. Clearly, it looked just like her, but it had such a wonderful sensibility, and it's still here in Tucson, by the way. So the people that own that, hopefully you'll get to meet them. Hopefully,
nice. Well, I think the gal was in before you had sold it. I brought the painting in, and I think I met her.
Oh, you may have
either after she bought it or before she bought it. But I remember she was very nice.
For sure. Yeah,
very nice lady. Yeah.
So now you've been doing this. You were a young gun. You were, you know, the young person on the block, one of them. But now you're like one of the elder statesmen, you know, and you're still in your 40s, you're young, early 40s. But what do you tell those people out there, artists that are considering maybe making it as a career, and you know, what advice do you give them? Because I mean, you've done it. I think you've done it the hard way, in the sense that you were self-taught, and then you went and learned all the skill sets that you needed to do. And I've said this many times, that you're one of the most gifted artists that I represent, just pure natural gift of ability to paint. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think you can teach that. I think you either have it or you don't, and that aspect. But what do you tell those artists out there that want to maybe do what you're doing?
I don't know. I mean, there's obviously, it takes a lot of work, and it takes self-motivation. You know, no one's going to get you out of bed in the morning and get you in front of your easel but you. So you have to discipline yourself to do that. And that's going to be really difficult to do if you don't have that quote unquote fire in your belly, because that is the interest that takes you to the easel every morning, that takes you outdoors every day. You know, if you don't have that, then it might be difficult to get to a point where you are doing it as a career, you know. Not that that's the goal necessarily, but in your question, you're asking that. But so yeah, it's just you know, making sure you have that aspect in place, you know, that hard, I guess, work ethic almost. And then, you know, just being patient with yourself. You know, I struggle with that at times with, you know, you're working along and you just feel like nothing's turning out and you get frustrated. You know, it's frustrating because you have to be honest with yourself about whether the work is good, mediocre, bad. You know, you have to kind of look at it and not just go, yeah, okay, that looks great. That looks great. I'm doing great. You know, it's like, no, I mean, for me, I just open up an art book and it's like, oh, I don't know anything of what I'm doing. You know, this is ground zero or square one here. It's sort of, but I think, you know, having that honesty with yourself too is important for growth. Just knowing that there are standards of art out there that are very, very high, whether or not you subject yourself to seeing them, they're out there. You know? Right. You know, because you could go down to your local coffee shop or something and think that that's the standard of art that you need to uphold, and you could say, oh, I can do that, you know, which is true. Obviously, that's very well maybe true, and that very well may be the standard you are aiming for, and that's fine too. But when you look in museums and in art books, and you know, things that artists have done over the last several hundred years, I mean, that is a different standard, I think, to be looking at and to trying to, you know, to use as a gauge for growth. And so I feel like that's helped me a lot, because I always look at historic artists and to see what kind of things they've done over the years. And like I said, I don't know a lick of what I'm doing compared to what those guys were doing, but I feel like it's helped me still to have a higher standard than I'm capable of producing. You know?
What artists would you put in that category that you like to look at to try to reach toward that goal?
Gosh, there's so many, Mark. I mean, there's just...
I've always thought Edgar Payne really...
Yeah.
There was a sensibility in your work in Edgar Payne.
Well, Edgar Payne was an early influence and a very, very... a mainstay. He's just always been such a solid influence for me. I mean, I just love the way he sees form and the solidity of things. You know, that really was attractive to me. And you know, there's a whole slew of American Impressionists and the California Impressionists, the Russian Impressionists. You know, there's the Canadian Seven. You know,
right?
The Taos guys. There's just, you know, and there's, you know, guys like Vouillard and Hammershoy. Even there's really interesting artists that cross over for me, where you just I don't know, you just can't help but notice the beauty of what they did.
Yeah, I see Armin Hansen also in your work as well, in some of your work.
Yeah, he did some cool stuff.
Oh, definitely. God, so good.
A lot of energy in his
One
work.
of my favorites, especially his cowboy stuff, which he didn't do much of, but it was really wonderful.
Yeah, the rodeo scene.
Yeah, they're just amazing. I have one in my collection, and I'm pleased that I have any.
Nice. Yeah, they're hard to come by.
Yeah, they're really hard to come by. Well, I think you've reached that standard. I know you won't believe it in your own work because you reach for the gold, and I think that's good. I think that's what makes a great artist, honestly. I agree with you. Is when you push and you say, I'm not there yet. And, you know, I've heard Ed Mill say that, you know, and Ed's great, but he's still striving. You know, I hear it in your voice. I hear it in Jeff and Josh Elliott's voice. And, yeah, you are, it's a joy to be able to have represented you for so many years, decades now, God. And to have this major show is also, of course, is a real gift for us and our clients as well. So I thank you for taking the time. I know you don't really like to do podcasts and stuff, but I thought it went very well.
Well, it's new to me. So, and I don't know. I get shy. I don't know what to say, but.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And you have an Instagram account. Maybe you want to share that with people so they can follow you as well.
Oh, yeah, sure. It's just, my name is Glenn Dean.
2 N's.
Yep, 2 N's. Thanks.
So Glenn Dean on Instagram, you can follow his work, and I encourage you to do it. And if you're in Tucson in November 20th through all of December, come see the show. It's going to be fantastic. You just brought us to work early. You know, I got to give you like an A+ for getting the work to us in such an early fashion. That's so rare for an artist to be able to do that because you're under pressure. I know you've got lots of shows and things you have to do. So kudos for that, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, got a trip coming up. So I had to
Good. From now on, I'm going to make shows with you, and you have a trip coming up right in that time frame. So
that'll make it happen.
Well, thank you, Glenn Dean.
Thanks for having me.
On the Art Dealer Diaries. Thanks. All right.